Be safe.
Yeah,
I love you.
All right, with that introduction, we are going to start the last video of the season, last race video of the season, I should say, at Thompson, Connecticut. This is the first race of the weekend. I was extremely lucky to have a clean sweep this weekend, qualified pole, and I won all three of the racing events. We had 30 cars registered, 31 cars registered if I remember correctly, and I think 27 ended up taking the track for this first race, and roughly the same number for the next two. I'm not sure if we lost at least one driver actually. So either way, 25 plus cars, Formula V's, as we usually have great groups in New England. And from my camera's perspective anyway, this was the most exciting race. So this one includes Chase Johnson, which you can see barely on my left-hand side there. He qualified second, and I love racing Chase. He's always an excellent driver, clean, respectful, but races you hard, and completely aware of his surroundings. So always great to see Chase at the racetrack, and I was really looking forward to having a battle with him. Unfortunately, he does pass me here, and I thought it was going to be a great race. Fortunately, he ends up breaking a head stud during this race, taking him out of the competition, and he couldn't race the following day because of other life commitments. So that was really a bummer. Sorry, Chase. Wish you could have been there. The next two races after this, I kind of gapped the field early and had not a significant gap, but a comfortable lead. The last race of the weekend was the closest finish. I actually had a pretty good sized gap for a lot of the race, and then with about 3 laps to go, I got stuck behind some lap traffic in the S's, which slowed me down, and that closed the gap some. And then I got stuck behind another couple of lap cars in the same corners the following lap, and that allowed Andy Pastor and Anton to get right up to my bumper and make the end of the race pretty exciting. So you can see Chase slotted in on the inside of me right there. I gave him a little tap in turn 2 to let him know, go for it. Let's go. I'll follow you. We got Anton behind us, and all I'm thinking right now is let's run away from him. I love having a good race. Of course I do, but if you can get away, you might as well do it. Strategy is key. I have a bit of a moment there. Still trying to figure out the grip conditions. Slid the car a little sideways, but quick hands saved it. That allowed him to get a bit of a gap on me, but he has a moment right there, and then going out to the curb. I think he had to lift pretty heavily, so I'm going to reel him in a little bit here, but a lot more on the straightaway. So I don't quite know if it was all from that moment or if I just have a little bit more power than him. It's hard to tell. Of course, I have the draft, so that helps. And I'm going to just blow by him before we even get to the braking markers, or, well, where we slow down for the corner. So I'll take that right back from you, Chase. And hopefully I can turn a little bit faster lap times, tap my helmet, say, follow me. I didn't really want to pass him on that straightaway, but I was coming at him much too quickly to try to push him. So all I could do was go for the pass. If I slowed down significantly, probably would have allowed Anton to get close enough to go on my inside and slow me down. So I kind of have to go for the move, unfortunately. If we were a little closer in speed, I would have pushed him. But I already have a pretty significant dent in my nose from pushing Chase earlier in the year that needs to be repaired. So that thing is going to collapse on me if I hit him too hard. You can see I'm using all the racetrack right out to the edge of the curb. Chase right in my mirror, but wisely just holding on and staying in line. So I worked with a few people over the weekend and looked at their data to see where they were losing time at this racetrack. And I think the hardest corners here are turn 3, which this is the clubhouse corner, the hairpin, the turn before that, and then the back section with the S's. So for any of you guys that might be watching, let's go over those sections. I'll talk you through what I'm doing in those 2 sections which hold the most amount of time for most drivers here. So we're going to come into the S's right now. We're going to get to the right side of the track, turn left, keep your foot flat right over that hump until you get on the other side of the hump, and then you slow down for this corner. And it's just a real touch of the brakes, not slowing down significantly, just brushing the brakes and letting the engine slow you down, because your engine is at such high RPM. When you lift off the gas, it's going to really slow you down anyway. And a Formula V is a momentum car, so you really want to carry as much speed as you can without upsetting the car, and it has a lot of grip, so you don't want to jam the brakes. You really just use the brakes to slow you down a few miles an hour, not really slow down. So this corner too, you're going to use what I call the KISS technique. It's outside curb on entry, inside curb at apex, and then outside curb on exit. You always want to use all of the racetrack when you can, no matter if you think you need it or not. And if you can do that, if you can use the outside edge, the inside edge, and then the outside edge, the speed will come. The lap times will just reduce. And I'm not suggesting that I'm some type of amazing expert at driving, but I seem to do okay, and I think a lot of guys are missing these just very standard racing techniques. It's stuff that most people know, but they don't put into practice very well when they have the helmet on. So just pay attention to how I'm doing it, and then watch your own videos and try to see if you're doing the same and using all of the racetrack in those specific corners. Well, turn 3 specifically, but I think the back section with the S's, it's more about commitment to just carrying the speed up over the crest is what gets most people. So right here, outside edge, my right side's touching the curb, inside edge, I didn't quite get to the curb, and then I drive it out to, there's not so much a curb on the outside edge there as that access road. So you want to get all the way to the access road. You can even use the access road if necessary. And instead of fighting the car, when you take that left-hander in turn 3, you got to drive. You got to concentrate on what I call driving it out. If you turn the wheel to the right in the corner or the left, you're concentrating on making the corner. But instead of thinking about making the corner, think about driving the car to the outside curb. And when you start driving the car to the outside curb, you're going to start opening up your hands and pointing those wheels at that curb, which is going to give you more front-end grip. If you turn left and keep your hands cocked to the left, you're going to start pushing the tires, and the front ends just kind of wash out, even if it's just a little bit. But if you turn your hands a little bit more straight, all of a sudden you have more grip and more control of where the car is going. So outside edge, inside, as much as I'm getting there. Of course, I'm missing it too. I'm not even doing it perfectly. But I have a big gap now. So unfortunately, yeah, Chase Johnson has lost his head stud. He's parked in the infield now. There was a big plume of smoke that you couldn't really see from my camera angle too well, where the oil had started pouring out of the engine, and he shut it down immediately. Thank goodness. Saved the engine. and he's done for the day. And like I said, for the weekend, he couldn't compete the following day, which is terrible. And I missed you, Chase. Wish you were there. So I'm just going to let you guys enjoy a couple of laps here. This was supposed to be a 14-minute race plus a lap. We end up getting a caution coming up, which you'll see. And there's a couple interesting moments after that. So why don't you just enjoy a couple laps around Thompson, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, so we're coming up on some lap traffic now. And like I said earlier, I have a pretty significant gap to second place. But you never know how it's going to go with the lap traffic. And in this point, I had to go around the outside. The car got a little tiny bit loose there. And we're going to go up the inside of Bud Conroy there. I got by them without too much trouble. But as you can see on my Micron, all those red lights, the track was kind of slowing down, or at least I wasn't pushing my hardest. But I'm at least a half a second slower this lap. Each one of those red lights indicates a tenth slower than my fastest lap. And there's only 5 lights, so when they're all lit up, you can assume it's more than half a second. a handy tool to have. I use it in iRacing all the time, the predictive lap timing, and I love having it in the car because it just kind of lets you know if you're pushing hard enough or if things are not working out in your favor, how much slower you're going, or if maybe you're turning faster lap times. It gives you reinforcement of when you do things correctly, and negative enforcement when you're doing things wrong. So, you know, I'm a 10th, or it was a 10th down-ish coming into that. It was 2/10 there for a second. And now I had a moment in that corner, and that slowed me down. So we have a double yellow. And this is an interesting caution. So at this moment, this far into the race, I'm thinking, and I don't know how many minutes we are, I haven't counted, but we're probably, you know, 13 minutes. The video time's at 16. We had a little bit before we took the green flag, so this was supposed to be a 14-minute plus a lap race. I'm looking at my lap counter on my Micron, and I'm doing the math in my head. They're about roughly a minute and a half laps. I think we're on like lap 13 on my lap counter, which includes the out lap. So it's not really lap 13, but anyway, I'm trying to figure all this out in my head. I'm saying, oh, the race is over. The race should be absolutely over right now. We've gone full course caution for I don't know what reason. I didn't see an incident. So by the time they clean up whatever they're going to clean up and they cart us around and everybody gets gathered back up, they'll just have to throw the checkered flag. So I'm thinking, race is over, I've won, that's okay. You know, and it wasn't very exciting up front anyway. That's not the way this ends up going, though. So you'll see in a moment that the pace car ends up shutting his lights off kind of last minute and then pulling off the racetrack. And we're going to go green again. And of course my lead has completely evaporated at this point. Yeah, see, there I am counting on my fingers, probably my toes too, trying to figure out how many minutes we could possibly have left. This is where a radio would be helpful. Even a timer in the car that maybe I could start at the green flag of the race. But I mean, regardless, I have a lap counter. There I am waving to the crowd. My parents were there, so that was nice. And of course, there goes the pace car. Shut his lights off. He's put his arm out the window and he's driving away from me very quickly. So I'm thinking, oh boy, we're about to go green. And what's that? What's that noise? Oh, there's the Exxon Valdez has showed up, apparently. So.
It was 12 hours before efforts to contain the slick began.
Apparently there was a little bit of an oil spill here. So let's take a look at this. So the pace car has pulled away very rapidly, and I start going once we get to the top of the hill. And the field is still spread out. Nobody actually caught it. There's two cars behind me, the only ones that caught them. So here we are going into turn one, where apparently there was an incident, and there's a whole bunch of oil, big oil slick there. And here I am. I thought my race was over for sure. I'm like, I spun out, it's over. But here's Andy right behind me. He had gotten through that much better than me, and he's right up my tailpipe. And of course, I'm going to drive the inside of the racetrack and make him go around the outside. He's got to earn it at this point. I've had that much lead for that long. Sorry, bud, you're going around the outside. I'm blocking the inside as much as I need to, which I believe is fair racing. I mean, swerving back and forth and being rude, that's not fair racing, but protecting your inside line from being from a driver just driving up the inside, that's fair game. So I've worked out a little bit of a gap in these S's. I seem to be a little bit quicker here than those guys all weekend. So luckily that was the case. And we're coming on the straight, so you can see he's still in my mirror, but quite a ways back from where he was at. And still no white flag. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? We are definitely over the 14 minutes plus a lap. Again, I'm driving up basically the middle of the racetrack, kind of protecting the track, and taking it much easier through turn 1 that time, because I didn't know how bad the oil was going to be and where exactly it was. It was very much a surprise the first time. And that oil drop down in turn 1 was also definitely in some of these other corners as well. Not nearly as bad as it was in turn 1. So I found out after the race there was an incident involving multiple cars in turn 1. They had actually jumped wheels, cars were kind of in the air, and so the corner workers immediately called in a double yellow, which was a little premature because everybody just got going again, drove away, no problem. I don't really know what happened exactly, but somebody lost oil at the apex of turn 1, and then probably drove around the racetrack, dumping even more oil in some of these other corners. Now, Formula V has a boxer engine, so the heads are out either side of the engine, so it's common to lose some oil out of our valve covers, or if there's any damage, to lose oil and not completely drain the engine like it would be in other cars. I mean, normally if a car gets in an accident and it's starting to lose oil, it's just all going to come out all at once. And in a Formula V, it's, like I said, if something happens to your valve cover, you could drive around and just only when you take left-hand turns or right-hand turns, one or the other, a bunch of oil is going to come out. So that was the white flag finally. And we're coming up on another lap car, which again is always a exciting moment, because you don't know if you're going to get stuck in a bad situation and have a car behind you take advantage of that. But luckily I was able to just almost take my normal line, which I take pretty wide going into that corner. But I had hesitated a little bit, which cost me a little bit of time, but we still had a fair gap behind us at this point. So coming to the checkered flag, I'd just like to thank everybody that helps me out. This was an amazing season. I won all but 2 races I entered this year. First place, lots of poles and podiums, and I put a little montage together of some shots from over the season, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. And thank you all. Thanks iRacing. Thanks Chris Cox at Noble Racing, John Vandekar, Coyote Racing. Thanks to everybody that helps me out, and also my wife for putting up with me doing this. It was just a great year all around. So many great people in Formula V. And if anybody's interested, come find me at the racetrack, and you'll see that this is a group of guys that you want to go racing with. All right, thanks a lot, and we'll see you at the next one.